Rick, my name is John Staten. We go back a long way. I've known you for some time.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm in Dr. Miller's program. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and they take care of me the very best that they know how. I need to listen to them, and they call me and ask me to check on me. Dr. Miller, I appreciate you, but I've also been, my wife has been in both these other doctors' hospitals. They take me here, so we do have a good health reform. But what I want to ask is, I want to ask you this, I want you to tell me, what makes you think we had cash for clunkers and everybody went out and bought cars? It was $3 billion, Rick, you know that. My son is a car manager. They sold over 300 cars. They have not received the first dime back. If we can't run a $3 billion program, and I love you like a brother, if we can't run a $3 billion program, how in the world is the federal government ever going to run an insurance program? We can ask more questions if you don't clap, okay? Because all of you need to ask them the question. But how can we do that? And Rick, let me ask you something. You say that you wrote this bill about that there would be no abortions when yesterday and the day before yesterday, your president and my president, whether I like him or not, he's my president, voted to send more money to countries to have more abortions. And Rick, buddy, I love you that you voted for abortion. You voted pro-abortion. The reason we have more people that work at McDonald's and that we can't understand is because we killed 50 million laborers. We wouldn't have this problem. And you know that. I love it that you know that.
First of all, here. Well, okay, if you have Blue Cross, it's essentially the same. But let me just, I can't speak for Senator Kennedy. Let me say this. You asked some very good questions, and I want to respond to those. First of all, you're absolutely right. There has been a delay in paying the auto dealers who took part in the Cash for Clunkers program. What happened was that it turned out to be a lot more popular than anybody ever thought it would be. And the fact of the matter is that when all of these, really the first one was $1 billion. And that wound up being spent in about 10 days. And when the claims started coming in for that, those claims just overwhelmed the Department of Transportation's computer system. And what they have found is that, unfortunately, there are a lot of qualifications for this program, and they have to go through and check off every form that comes in, make sure every box is checked. Sometimes these forms haven't been well filled out, they have to go back. And I saw the Secretary of Transportation, one of my former colleagues, Republican colleagues, Ray LaHood on television last night. He's responsible for the program. And he said, we're now prepared to start making the payments, but we are 2 or 3 weeks late, and in fact they are. I hear that the second installment on Cash for Clunkers, which is another $2 billion, is as popular as the first, and that's expected to be exhausted by the end of this month or early in September. And I'm sure that they're going to keep having those claim forms come in. I hope they've got their computers up to speed now so they get these payments made. You're right in saying the auto dealers have been badly disadvantaged by this, and that needs to happen very quickly. Your real question was that if the government can't make its payments on time under Cash for Clunkers, then how can we run a government-sponsored health care plan? Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure we could. And as I indicated earlier, I have major concerns with the government having its own owned and operated healthcare plan competing with private health insurance. Private entities don't do very well when they're competing with the government for anything. And I do not frankly see this as a positive step forward. I think most of our panel members have, in some words or others, said essentially the same thing, that the government plan competing with private insurance is not the right approach for this. Now, I'm not going to come back to cooperatives and have that discussion we had at length a moment ago, but that is vastly preferable in my view to having the government have its own insurance plan. We need to go to the back of the room. There's a gentleman back there in a red shirt and in the very Excuse me, just a moment. You're going to be next, but they reminded me here that I did have a note on this. I didn't see it. I need to respond to your question on abortions. Let me say, as I said before, that in this legislation, in H.R. 3200, there is no government funding for abortion services. That is very clear. And so, the subject here is healthcare reform, and in the healthcare reform, there is no government funding for abortion services. Now, you have raised questions about whether or not the government should outlaw all abortions, and I'll be happy to respond to that. This question comes up at town meetings on a regular basis, and I'll be happy to respond to it. It's outside the scope of what we're here to discuss, but I'll be happy to respond to it. And that is this. I respect the Constitution, and the Constitution has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to say that there are certain guidelines that have to apply with respect to pregnancy termination services. No state can enact laws that fails to respect those guidelines, and neither can the federal government. And every time proposals have been made that would restrict the availability of lawful pregnancy terminations in accordance with the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision, I have voted no. And I'm voting no because I took an oath of office when I was sworn in as a member of Congress to uphold the Constitution. And if that does not mean that you vote against legislation that is clearly on its face unconstitutional, I don't know what it does mean. The gentleman in the back of the room right here